Recording in progress.
Hi, Janet. Hey, I'm good. How about you guys?
Good afternoon. Aloha, folks. Welcome. All good? All right. Welcome, welcome. Nice to see all of your beautiful faces here, and a warm welcome to those folks on Zoom. My name is Thomas Daubert. I'm the Executive Director of Friends of Kauaʻi Wildlife Refuges. We are the nonprofit friends group established to support the 3 national wildlife refuges here on the island of Kauaʻi. And it's a pleasure to have you join us again for our Princeville Moʻolelo series, which is presented in partnership with the Princeville at Hanalei Community Association. So the graciousness of this space and some technology over here, we get to be here once a month, coming together in conversation and community, and it's such a pleasure to have you all join us. So before I turn the microphone over to who you really came here to hear, I get to do a little bit of a plug for our organization to continue to share the role that we have in our work to steward the generosity of our community into the important work of our friends in Brown. So my quick plug here, like I said, Friends of Kauaʻi Wildlife Refuges is the dedicated nonprofit friends group established over 42 years ago to support the 3 national wildlife refuges located on the island of Kauaʻi, including Hanalei, Kuleana, and Kilauea Point. Uh-oh, one moment here. What are you all doing over here?
Your audio off. It's coming through your speakers.
Turn it off on Zoom.
Oh, did you join on Zoom with the speakers?
I did not, but maybe it got turned off. Oops. Sorry.
Actually, I'm still here. You are joined there.
So but I'm off already.
So I need to be. Yeah. Now go.
Okay. Oh, what's this thing? There we go. Now, once again. Okay. Okay. Thank you so much. Technology is our friend. Thanks for your patience. So, what gets us up in the morning? As a friends group, our why is basically helping to protect the native, threatened and native wildlife of our island. And we do that through Hanalei and Kuleana National Wildlife Refuge, supporting the threatened and endangered wetland bird species featured here. And then over at Kilauea Point, our mission and life purpose is to help support the native seabirds of our island, along with the visitation programs out at Kilauea Point and many other good things. But that kind of encompasses the portion of the wildlife, the wetland birds and the seabirds of our island is our kuleana to help fish and wildlife maintain them. And how we do that is essentially by providing a gateway to channel the generosity of this beautiful community in service of U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. And we do that through fundraising efforts, providing in-kind staffing support, and doing community outreach as we are today, building a community, educating our community, and bringing us together. So again, thank you for your interest in our work and the work of Hob and others to support our Mōlī populations. Quickly, a couple of the programs that we're really proud of that we continue to support as a friends group. One of them that's closest to my heart is the Wildlife Rehabilitation Program. This year, our Friends group has dedicated $50,000 to support the care of sick and injured birds transferred from one of our refuges into the incredible care of Save Our Shearwaters. If we could lift up a little round of applause for Saving Shearwaters. Incredible, incredible partner. And we're really honored over the years to continue to escalate the level of support that we're able to provide them. Again, thanks to you and your generosity. We also, as I said, go out into the community, extending the voice of Fish and Wildlife out into the community, meeting with new friends, young and old, in our work. And it's a big part of building the future capacity of conservation by educating our community and engaging them in this work. Another thing that is very forward-looking is our commitment to environmental education. We have with us today a number of the volunteers who help support the Mōlī Life Cycle program, which is a really fun one, going out into the schools and then culminating with a life-changing field trip back at Kilauea Point. We're supporting that for many years by providing free buses so that the schools don't bear the burden of getting those young people out to the refuge. And this year, as we continue as a Friends group just to pivot and flex and find new ways to help, we're able to jump in and fill a temporary role to help oversee the fulfillment of this program. There's a gap in the staffing due to all the changes and challenges happening at Fish and Wildlife. And we were able to collaborate with them and spring into action and underwrite a temporary position that will oversee the program between now and to the end of the year. So it's one more place of just jumping in and making sure that those life-changing experiences with those young people will continue this year. And again, we couldn't do that without knowing we have the funding behind it to just immediately respond and jump in and do that. So another great moment in time for us as a Friends group to be agile, nimble, and armed and ready to go with some support. So mahalo to you again. As well, looking to the future, building capacity of wildlife conservation is our annual commitment to the Daniel Moriarty Memorial Scholarships. And this year, our board once again is pledging, thanks to the generosity of these friends in the room and others, $35,000 in scholarships is our intended distribution this year. So we'll probably be launching the application this year around February 1st. So if you know any young people or know any families that can help spread the word, we'll be doing our usual outreach to the community and let them know that the application process is open for anyone studying any variety of wildlife conservation-based careers are eligible for this scholarship. And it's really just an immeasurable impact on the future, not knowing how all those people are going to go out and wind their way through the world based upon that commitment that we're making to their education. So it's a really exciting one that you really can't even measure, but we're really proud to be a part of it. And certainly in the name of an incredible person, one of the founders of Kilauea Point. First and foremost, though, we are here to help fill in the puka of the programs and the direct services of our refuge partners. And this year, again, thanks to the forecast of generosity from our community, we're pledging a support of $170,000 to programs and direct need of the refuges, from as small things as rubber boots for volunteers who are out doing botulism surveys to repairing a water line out of Kilauea Point that is helping to restore the nene habitat. Anything that is needed by the refuge by the refuge hui that they don't have the funding for, they bring those asks to our board and we see what we can do to help fund that with the resources generated through our fundraising efforts. So it's an exciting time. We as well are just launching a brand new position that we're underwriting. It's a habitat maintenance position, filling in the gaps of the outcomes of all of that defunding and destaffing that happened last spring at Fish and Wildlife. It's been a long time coming, but we're in the process right now of hiring a brand new position to help, in particular, support habitat maintenance in Hanalei, which we're really proud to make a continued investment in, and help fill a puka, and to do that with another passionate new team member that we will be taking on as a Friends group. So underwriting that new position, we're also underwriting a contract to do habitat maintenance out at the viewpoint and another contract to do janitorial work out at Kilauea Point, basically responding to these new unmet needs at Fish and Wildlife and saying, how can we help? It's just our incredible honor to be able to say, what do you need and how can we help, and to be able to respond. So anyway, that's kind of who we are as a friends group. It's my honor to help guide and lead this work. And if you're inspired to be a part of what we do, please visit us out at Kilauea Point. Shop our nature store both online and out at the refuge. They're helping to steward people towards volunteer opportunities. And of course, we couldn't be here without the generosity of donations and memberships through our friends group. So if you're not already connected with us, there's a sign-up sheet in the back of the room. We'd be delighted to remain in touch with you through our newsletter. If you're online, there's a link to do that on our website. And that's probably about enough from me, but thank you for allowing me to give a quick plug to the work that we do. Yes. You're probably referring to Kuleana is the least known of the three sisters of the refuge group. It's kind of in the backside of Lihue. It as well is a wetland bird sanctuary, very similar in mission to Hanalei. And if you wanted to sort of check a box and say that you've seen it, it's a closed refuge, so it's not open to visitation. But if you follow the signs for the Alakoko or Menehune fish ponds, when you're at that overlook, the valley behind the fish ponds, that's the Kuleana stream that feeds the fish ponds, and Kuleana is the valley. Right behind the fish ponds is Kuleana National Wildlife Refuge, established in 1973, and again to protect and support waterbird population. So yeah, it's the least known of our three, and it's part of also the least probably supported, just because of the difficulty to get resources to it. But it's a really important part of the network of our three refuges here that have been complex together. Thank you for asking. Okay, so today we are going to enjoy yet another incredible chapter of welcoming Hob Osterlund back to the stage here. She is many, many things. She's an author, a photographer, a bird guide, a producer. I'm sure I'm missing many, many things, and she'll fill in the gaps on that. But to us, she's a very generous and very dear friend to our organization, helping to continue to find ways to help build the capacity of what we do through collaboration, partnership, friendship, and love. And it's our incredible, incredible honor to welcome her back to the stage. Hob Osterlund.
Okay. Should I take the layout?
There we go.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay.
Hob Osterlund.
Hi. Before I begin, I want to say a couple of things. And one is that whenever I get up and do this talk, which has been a lot of times now, I always feel like a bit of a Trojan horse, that I'm carrying the wisdom of a bunch of people here who do this work, as well as the wisdom of the albatross that we learn from. So I want to recognize a couple of people. Krista in the back there. Krista, would you stand for a minute? Krista's see in the brown shirt. So if you feel so moved to want to start volunteering for the wildlife system here, Krista works for the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. She has lots of information about what it takes to do that, and has done a great deal of work with our native birds here. So I want to give great credit to Krista. I don't see Kathy Branham here yet, but she should be coming. Angie from the Aina Kai does a great deal of volunteering, has been doing so for about 10 years or so now, right? Would you say? More than 10 years. We started the bird guiding thing there back in, gosh, 2011 or so, I think. Yeah. So, and the new horticulturist from Aina Kai has moved here from Florida. We have visitors here from St. Louis, right? Very good. Thank you for being here. We have people who live part-time here and part-time in Chicago. So we've got a lot of energy from all over the country here. I also want to give great credit to these two ladies right here who do the monitoring at Kilauea Point. They get up there and they count this year 194 nests. 194 nests. That's no small count to monitor 194 nests. They climb all around in the hills and bushes and keep track of them, and as well as one other person, and have been doing so for years. Louise also is returning to Midway next year to captain the count there. That's no small, that is a huge job. This year, roughly 600,000 or so nests to count. And with some drone help this time, right? Yeah. Yeah, yeah. So drones becoming more and more involved in the count, being able to recognize when a bird is nesting and when it's just sitting on the ground. Not an easy thing. So they're training it to do all that. So Louise and her team go every other year. So this next year, off she goes again. Right now, the team is still there, right? Yuka's gone to that one. Okay. Yeah, right. Okay. And Patty too is up. Patty, I can't count the number of things that Patty does, but Patty arrived to this work by a talk just like this. She came to the talk, and then she came up to me and she said, "What can I do?" Well, she's on 12 boards now and the president of 11 of them. Right? Not quite, but well, okay, a little stretch, but anyway. Okay. Let's see, who else have I not recognized in the room who's doing albatross work? That's it for right now. Okay, good. And I want to say one other thing before we start the slides too, because it's such a trying time in our world. I think we all feel it, we all know it. So I want to just acknowledge the presence of just being here, just showing up. When you show up for this, you're showing up for nature and you're showing up for love. And that's what we need, to me. That's our only way to find our way through this. So thank you for showing up. You could be home drinking, right? Beating your kids. You could be doing anything, right? But here you are, curious about a creature among us that lives nowhere else among humans. So what a great privilege we have. Okay, here we go. And I have some new slides this year. So those of you who have attended, I know we have 30 people or so online. Okay, and there are some people in there who probably attended this 10 times. Susan, how many for you now? She can't count that high anymore. I'm getting you a calculator for your birthday. Okay, so here we are back when we could see the light of the lighthouse, albatross flying by. You can see what an extraordinary wingspan they have, 6.5 feet, doing that great glide that they do, that great dynamic soaring. So 3 things to remember if you fall asleep the rest of the time. I'm going to ask you at the very end this very same thing. 3 things to remember about them. Kauaʻi is the only place in the world they nest among humans. In the whole world, any species of albatross, 22 species of albatross, Kauaʻi is the only place they nest in among a significant population of humans. And before today, or before last July, I said Princeville was the only place. But now I say Kauaʻi because we had our first bird pledged from Poipu last year in living memory, in recorded or living memory. We've never known it to happen before. So now it's Kauaʻi, not just Princeville. And that they spend 90% of their lives solo and airborne. If you can imagine a bird that lives to probably 80, how can we imagine that? 90% of their lives. Do the math, Mark. How many, if you live to 80 years old, how many years of your life is that 90%? 72, right? Something like that. So 72 years of your 80 years of your life you spend solo and airborne. You can imagine. Imagine that. It's just guessing. We don't know for sure exactly that they're alone that whole time, but they're solo flyers. There's no such thing as an albatross flock. There's such a thing as an albatross colony. We're on the ground. But in fact, the only time I ever heard the name, you've heard of a murder of crows and a parliament of owls. The only time I ever heard a name was an impossibility of albatross. Because they don't fly as a flock. You might see 2 of them flirting, passing each other by in the sky and talking to each other, but you won't see an actual flock. So they're built for solitude. So when the chicks are left alone, when they're only a couple of weeks old, they don't fuss over it. Solitude is what they're built for. And that you can do something to help them stay safe. So hopefully we'll find some method for you to feel like you want to do that. And even if you just plain care matters. Okay, so the Kauaʻi Albatross Network, which I'm the founder of, we started about 15 years ago or so after Fish and Wildlife Service had a class to teach some volunteers to do the banding on private lands. And Beth Flint, who is a very revered biologist among us, said to me and to a group of us, why don't you form a hui which is an organization to do something because there's so many people on Kauaʻi who care. And that's how it started. So, and we all in Nainakai and many other private properties and on Kilauea Point, we all converse with each other. We all support each other. This is not a competition. This is a, how can we help each other? I have this problem. What have you done? That kind of conversation. So just so you know that the mothership at Midway that I just mentioned from Louise, that where Louise is going, that was the old Hawaiian word that used to be used, pihimanu, now it's called Kuaʻihelane, where the mothership is. So there's roughly 2 million or so albatross there, and this year around 600,000 nests or so. So, but we'll talk about why that's important and why Kauaʻi is super important for them. That's about 1,100 miles away or so. And I also want you to recognize Wisdom. Wisdom, of course, is the most famous bird in the world because she is the oldest wild bird in the world. They say she's 74 now. We think she's probably closer to 80, maybe even older, because when they first banded her all those years ago, she was sitting on an egg. And that's not usually true for a 5-year-old. Usually it's true for if you're more 8, 9, 10 years old, or maybe it wasn't even her first nest. So who knows how old she really is. She's not nesting this year, but she did come back. She did have a mate, and she had some time with him. We assume it's a him. We don't know that for sure. But anyway, there she is, taking the year off from laying eggs. And I figure, by the way, I figure if you've made it to 80 years old, you should get credit for every single year you got there. And stop with the eggs. I don't think she needs to raise any more babies. But look at her. If you put her side by side against a 2-year-old, you can't tell a single sign. Now that's the thing the ladies would like. We would like that skin, right? We don't care about laying eggs anymore, but the skin, we want the skin, right? Even under a microscope, you can't tell the difference. Isn't that awesome? And she's still flying long distances, and she's at Midway. That would be something if she visited, huh? Now that would be a story. That would be a story. Okay, so one of the things that we started back in 2014 was contacted the Cornell Lab of Ornithology and did 5 years of live streaming, 24/7 streaming of watching albatross chick grow up. And that made albatross much more available to the world. It's the first time anybody had actually watched that happen. And during that time in the 5 seasons, we had 450 million minutes viewed from 190 countries. So people really got a chance to see what these birds were like, how they behaved when no human was around, just the camera on them all the time. It was a great experience and great to be over. Then I wrote the book, Holy Moly. We were gonna have some for sale tonight, but Universe intervened on that. So Holy Moly is a book that I wrote about some experiences that I've had with albatross, as well as some memoir. Some of you have read it, I know. Anyway, you can go to Thomas's shop and buy that there. Also, oh, I forgot to mention Susan Durker, for God's sake. Susan Durker is also the author of the children's book, Kalua Kalua, and the Albatross of Kauaʻi. And the person who invented the stuffies that you all like to hold at night. The baby stuffies, huh? She's sitting right in front of me and I didn't understand. Yes, you can go on your website. Yes, if you go to albatrossofkauaʻi.com, mine is albatrosskauaʻi.org, yours is albatrossofkauaʻi.com. The books are there and the stuffies are there. The stuffies and books are also available at Kilauea Point. And you can see footage from the live cam. Yeah, and we have a couple of clips here too tonight. As you can see, also dogs love the book. And then I produced a film called Kalama's Journey back in 2017 about a chick who had been raised by 2 moms here. And that's a common occurrence here on Kauaʻi. A lot of female pairs and lots of chicks raised by them. If they either have their own fertile egg, they found a sperm donor on the side, or we provided them with a fertile egg. We'll talk more about that. Anyway, cool thing to watch. You can see that for free on Vimeo anytime. And then this is the second book that we did, The Birds of Kilauea Point, also available in the gift shop. So In November or so, the albatross start returning after they've been gone for a few months. After their chicks have been fledged in July or so, they start coming back. And they come back from long distances away to return not just to little old Kauaʻi, after foraging a place that's probably 12 million square miles, but finding the very square footage on Kauaʻi they want. Their GPS is so important to them. They have high fidelity. So if I came into this room, for example, and there was an albatross over there, an albatross over there, I could be pretty well assured I know which one is which, just based on their preference for a certain spot. They're that close. They will change nest sites from time to time. We'll talk about that. But here they are coming back to the place either they grew up or they have nested. How they find their way is a little bit complicated to try to understand, but basically think of it as them creating a smell map in their mind. How do they find their way all the way from the ocean, from near Vancouver, near the Russian shores, near the shores of Japan, all the way around the whole North Pacific? How do they do that? How do they find their way back to this tiny little spot? Well, it's partly by sound and partly by smell, is what we're now guessing. This ocean has a voice, and it sounds different in different places depending on how deep the seamounts are and how big the waves are crashing. They can discern that. So we have so much to learn from them. Okay, now I got to make sure I can do this is a video. So if I put it again, there we go. We got sound. Oops. Okay, so when they thank you. When they reunite, one moment. Okay, I'm going to keep talking while they work that out. When they meet each other, when they reunite, typically if it's a male female pair, typically the male will be here first, and then the female will join him, and then they'll whinny and moo and dance and preen and have sex and spend the night together, and whinny and moo and preen and have sex together again and spend the night together. What other species can you think that does that? Certainly not your dogs or cats or horses. No relationship at all, right? Albatross have a relationship. There are some humans that behave that way too. There we go. So that's a mated pair. That pair is actually taking the year off, and they're enjoying themselves. Sky moo and that clatter. And this pair is also a mated pair that abandoned their egg, and they're having fun dancing. And then another mated pair over there behind them, all taking the year off in a colony that actually has a record number of nests. So you just never know what goes into that choice. So after they've been together there now for a moment or two, then this goes on. And then she ultimately throws him off because she probably can't breathe very well. They're not used to having any weight on their shoulders. And she goes, that's enough. And then they dance again, and it's fine. Then this is a mated pair that I saw in the act of mating when some nene attacked them. So I want you to see what their opinion was about that. The male is on your right. The male albatross is here on the right. They have a little kissy, then he goes after him. That dude was not good. I am so mad at you. You can hear some screeching going on. Then she decides, you know what, I'm going to go comfort him. He's upset. And then she goes in to just kind of soothe him out. The nene disappear with a lot of opinions about that. That's their space. You see, the nene live here year round, and they think this is all their territory. And then when the albatross come in November, then they think, no, this is not your place. This is our place. So they'll body slam them as they're coming into land and try to keep them away. There's quite a competition. In fact, I get so concerned sometimes about the chicks, the albatross chicks when they're little, and the nene aggression with them. But they're not good friends. And then this happens. Oh, well, first, before this happens, so after they mate, then she stores the sperm in her body and goes out to sea to bulk up. And when she feels she has enough food for herself and a baby, then she'll come back, she'll release the sperm to herself, and within a day, she'll lay an egg. Don't you wish humans could make that choice? Wouldn't that be good? Just choose, right? Keep it, don't keep it, right? So anyway, then she does this. There it is. A little bit of blood on it. That came out of a cloaca about the diameter of a pencil eraser. That's a large egg, the length of a soda can. So that's one thing that we should talk to God about. A little bit of blood. And it's also soft at first. So she's busily nibbling at it, talking to it, touching it, and then she'll sit quietly on it. And down she goes. What did somebody say something? What? It's still pretty soft. Yeah, it needs to dry in the air. Yeah, it's good because then it can compress a little bit while it's coming through, right? So anyway, so that's what she does. And that, by the way, is the only way without DNA testing that you can tell for sure that this is a girl. At least when I went to nursing school, that's what's true. Maybe it's changed, right? I don't know, but yeah. Okay, and now sometimes we have, when you see this, with one poking out like that, that means there's two eggs underneath her. And when there's two eggs underneath her, that means it's a female-female pair. That's how we know we have two girls. So then what happens, if they're on a particularly approved property that's been known to be able to protect the birds, then they'll get an adoption of a fertile egg that comes over from the Pacific Missile Range on the west side. And this is when how this looks. The biologist comes in, takes the old egg, which has been candled as infertile, gives her the egg she's never met before. She immediately accepts it, talks to it affectionately, and sits down on it. I have never once seen an albatross object. Have you? To an adoptive egg? Never once. Have you ever seen one? They never object. They got a fertile egg now. Yeah, meaning there's been a sperm donor in the picture. Right. Yeah, exactly. They candle it. Who asked the question? You did. They candle it. They carry a dark cloth with them that they put over their heads to make a portable dark room. And then they have a very high intensity flashlight they put at the end of the egg, and you can see the embryo inside. And it's either moving around and you can see a little pulsating blood, or you see not that. You can tell that starting from when it's about a few days old. So a fertile egg, they keep it. Okay. Sometimes they stay for months. Sometimes they stay for longer. It takes a little more than 2 months for the egg to hatch. And if it hasn't hatched, we've had females stay as long as 3 months, waiting for it to hatch. And then they finally get together and you can see them talk about it and decide to bail. But it's sad to watch. Yeah, we want them to have it. So
a lot of human interaction.
That's just brief. It's we have a team from Pacific Missile Range who comes over and goes to all the properties and just checks all 194 from Kilauea Point and the several private lands that have been approved to accept adoptions. They'll just go from property to property. Takes just a minute, put it back, and then move on to the next egg. Pacific Missile Range facility is a Navy base on the west side of Kauaʻi, where the albatross nest, and we don't want them to, because of potential for collision with aircraft. So we want them all removed from there. But they haven't gotten the memo. They keep trying. This is a male having the egg tested and you'll listen for the word, the biologist will say fertile. But I also wanted you to see this bird because we've named him Saul. He is one of our oldest nesters on Kauaʻi. He's in his 30s. Kilauea Point's got a couple of folks too that are in their 30s. So they're not close to wisdom's age, but we have our own Kauaʻi pride. You can see he's quite a mellow dude. He doesn't even poke at the clipboard. steps aside for her, then sits down as if it's still there, and just waits. Notices people around, but not alarmed by them. Yep. And see, he's even sitting on it as if the egg is there. She's just said fertile. And now, yeah. So she just candled it and put it in fertile. The question that was asked for the folks on Zoom, the question was asked was whether the person off camera was doing the candling with that darkroom. And the answer is yes. So now Saul is back on his egg, and we expect that egg to hatch starting next, probably this weekend. Now, then what happens is the parents take turns on the eggs. So the mom will lay the egg, and then the dad has the first really long shift. So, and that could be as long as a month of fasting. No food, no water, except drinking a little bit of rain. But he has a really long shift. And you would think that after that month of sitting on the egg, that he'd be really eager to be relieved. But that's not the case. What happens is that he's not at all eager to leave. He really wants to stay with his baby. Now, in this situation, the bird on the left is a widower. His mate, he's successfully raised other chicks, but his mate presumably died, didn't come back from sea last year. And then this year he has a new mate, and she is a younger woman, and she is a first-time nester. So she clearly laid the egg, because as we know in nursing school, that's who can do that is the girls. So she laid the egg, and now he's been on his month shift. And now she's come back on the right, and she wants to see and sit on her egg. And see, watch how this goes. Their conversation is friendly. They both want to touch and talk to the egg. But she's so eager to sit on it, she doesn't care if she kicks it out. She doesn't care. She can let me in, honey. He goes, no, but I love it too. Finally, she's almost there. She almost kicks it out. And also, you know, the mate for life story about albatross, what we say is they mate for life except when they don't. We have thruples, and we have divorces and remarriages. We'll talk about a little bit more tonight. But in this case, they get what precious little time they have together. So mate for life means the equivalent of about 2 weeks a year together. That's why it works so well. Look, he's going, oh yeah. No time to get annoyed. No, everybody's irritating if you live with them long enough, right? Okay, and then I mentioned the drinking rain. This is actually a video from Midway. Taking little sips of rain, not a very effective amount of intake of water, but it helps. Otherwise, they just kind of sit there as if in trance. Now let's talk about the count for just a minute. This is a little confusing because I don't have the total numbers yet for Kauaʻi Midway. Midway last year had 620,000. This year, somewhere around 580, 600, a little bit fewer, but around 600,000 nests. Kauaʻi this year has a record now. I made this slide and sent it to Thomas this morning. As of this afternoon, it went from 458 to 459. So another egg was found, another nest was found. So 459, Lehua, the island off the west side. You might remember when there was a diphacinone drop to try to get rid of the rats, drop the rodenticide on the island. The rats were all eliminated. Now the seabirds are nesting there again safely. So about 56 albatross there. Oahu, I don't have their numbers yet, but last year was 172. So you can see that the percentage that we have here of the albatross nesting in main Hawaiian Islands, something like 0.01% of the total population. So why do we think every chick matters here? Why does it matter for these chicks and all of us to be doing what we do to support these birds? Well, in part, it's because Midway's going underwater. So here's a slide. This was made in 2017, so this is old information, but this is a slide in 2017. You can see 3 islands. These 2 are merged now, right, Louise? Yeah, so Sand and Spit have now merged as one island, and then Sand Island, where the Navy runways still are, right? And a runway that brings our counters there and brings the 50 people that live there. Then this is now, says in 2100, you can see the runways are inundated. Sand and Eastern Island and Spit are gone, and Sand Island is virtually unusable for human occupation, for humans to be there at all. And the birds could still have some space, but they need somewhere else to go. So Kauaʻi has three things that no other island has. It has elevated bluffs that keeps it safe from sea level rise. It has an absence of mongoose. All of the other main Hawaiian islands are covered with mongoose. I understand there's a fear that there's one here right now, but hopefully it's not true. Hopefully it's a false sighting, or it's one that's already died somehow. And the third thing is people who care. You add those three things together and you've got a Noah's Ark for these birds. There are lots of other birds that benefit from that Noah's Ark, but we're focusing on the albatross now. Then after those 62 days or so, the egg starts hatching, and you can see the bill right here poking through the egg. They will chat to each other. The parent will not help. The chick has to do it herself. And then after poking a big enough hole, then she'll use her shoulders to break out of the shell, and then falls over in collapse. You can see her oculi is still in the shell. And as soon as she has enough energy, she will get fed even with her bottom still in the shell, right? So the parent is just waiting there. She's going to be exhausted from having, look at those little tiny feet, exhausted from having hatched. You can see the blood supply in the internal part of the egg. Parent has food ready to regurgitate to them. Yeah. Yeah. And this is the time, especially immediately after hatch, anytime while the parents were sitting on the eggs, but especially after hatch, the predation issue becomes greater. We have the pig predation issue, which we hope now is really solved because of fences in every place in the private properties as well as Kilauea Point. We hope there are no pigs inside any of those fences, nor can they break through. So we should have a much decreased pig predation count this year. And the other issue is cats. And I want to show you a little bit that cat picture was taken one night. That parent was sitting on a chick, and the next morning the chick was about 3 feet away, killed but not eaten, just killed. And so for some reason the camera didn't capture the very moment of kill. But here's the thing about these native birds in Hawaii. They don't know what a predator is. I caught that cat in a trap, put it in the shade before I was ready to take it away, and this albatross walked up to the cage and went and just was curious. Just, what are you? No fear, because they don't have predators and generally in their lives. They're an apex bird anyway, with the exception of occasional shark predation, but they don't know what this kind of thing is. And then gets bored and walks away. But that's to show you the absence of fear that our native birds feel about predators. I'm sorry? Would a cat attack an adult? We've not had that happen. I think the oldest we've seen a cat have interest in a chick has been about a month old. But on Guadalupe Island, the cats did a lot of predation in Mexico. That's the one other island besides in Hawaii where Laysan albatross and black-footed albatross are. And cats were doing plenty of predation on adults. They gang up on them. So I don't trust them to not learn to do that. But basically, the intensity of the trapping that we do around chicks is when they're really little, and especially when they're left alone. But even when they're under their parents, they're at high risk. Okay, busy chart. I want to thank Louise Barnfield once again in one of her many talents, creating this format for us. 12 years worth of data. If you can see it's the highest number, now 459. We don't know how many have hatched yet because it's just starting this week. Fledging, we'll find out. Oops. I had a hip fracture and my knee collapses sometimes. So this is the number that we really look for, the reproductive success number, which means out of how many eggs that were laid, how many chicks fledged. That's the number that we really want to find out. And for you visual people, that's much nicer to see this way. See how the blue bar on the right is higher than anywhere else? We hope also that the red one and the yellow one are higher too. We'll find out. But for a while, it looked like we were kind of sloping downhill. And now we've been heading back uphill. So that's what we'd like to see. This looks like it's dark for a moment, but it isn't going to be. This is what the chicks look like. This is from Cornell. That's about 2 weeks old. Parent is still keeping it warm, but getting up and starting to flap, recognizing others. And within a day or two, that chick is going to be left alone. The parent will come and go in what they call guard phase, which is the parent will stand nearby and just sort of sit there or stand there. They'll droop their wings out if it's really windy to block the wind from them. And they just stand there as if protecting from something, not even knowing that not even thinking about predators as much as this is my baby, I'm gonna keep them out of the wind. But by this age, they can now, what they call controlling their own temperatures. It's called thermal regulation. They can control their own temperatures. They don't need a parent sitting on them anymore. In fact, you can see them saying to their parent, "Get off, mother." I always show this picture. It always makes the cut because it's the one and only slide I've ever sold to National Geographic. This was a chick eating its own shell. And this is the amnion. This is the inner lining to the shell here. And so the way it was falling on the body makes it look like there was a wing there. But actually the wings are way back over here. But just wandering around, they get very curious. They start building their own nests. They wander about and make several nests in their lifetimes. And then we all feel really bad for them when it really monsoons here. They get very soaked and they look very cranky, but then they dry out. Sorry? Well insulated. Yes, they're very well insulated. Yes, thick down. And then also, if you ever feel a sudden urge to gain weight, squid oil is the way to go. Squid oil is the way to really suck a few gallons of that down, and I guarantee you, right? What's the opposite of biggest loser? Biggest gainer, fastest gainer, yeah. And then at this age now, the company that hangs out with the albatross chicks are mostly the teenagers. These are going to be unrelated birds who are just curious about them and want to hang out with them. So they just hang out, they'll preen them, they'll tease them. They'll be like older siblings who sometimes you want their company and sometimes you want them to leave you alone. But if you have a big field, the way you can find a chick is where the teenagers are, because the teenagers will come hang out with them. They just like their company. They're curious about them. Sometimes they'll try to sit on them. Sometimes they try to mount them, but we forgive them. And then they get bigger and they stay. This is how they beg from their parents. You can see the adult feathers coming in. They bother away at the bill, like, come on, feed me. And then the parent will regurgitate up squid in liquid or solid form at that age, as well as flying fish and other chunks of sea matter. And that's how you can tell that a chick is eaten. You can see that little drip coming off at the end of the bill. That means that chick is eaten and they are desalinating. So you notice at the top here, you see these nostrils right here. Nostrils, they come from the tube nose family, like shearwaters and petrels, from the tube nose family. And they have 4 purposes with those tube noses. Like us, they breathe and they smell through their noses, but they also desalinate through that. They have a desalination gland down under their eyes and they can drop the salt out of their system. Their kidneys can't take that much salt, just like ours can't. So if you ever lay awake at night wondering, how is it that a seabird gets fresh water? Now you know, right? Right? And that's the reason that we don't have gulls here. Gulls are not really seagulls. Gulls are not a true seabird. And so they can't desalinate. So a gull can't fly 2,500 miles from the West Coast to get here because there's no fresh water. And nothing for them to eat either, for that matter. Every once in a while, we'll see one, an immature one that's arrived here, but they don't last long. So desalination, the universe in a drop of water. And the fourth thing that they do with the nostrils here is inside the nostrils, they have a speedometer. So they can tell when they're going fast enough. They do this dynamic soaring over the ocean like this. Like this, they go down a swell, up a swell like this. Dynamic soaring. When they go up like this, they go vertical. And when they go vertical, they would stall. If you any pilots in the room, you know, they would stall. They would lose lift. But the military jets can do that because they're going fast enough. So he knows it's going fast enough to do this and then down again like that without a single wing beat. Scientists put a camera on the back of an albatross and measured a full 7 days without a single wing beat. So 0 calorie flying a good part of the time. And then we like to leave the eggs out that are abandoned because the teenagers like to practice on them. And we tend to think of things as all instinct, but I can tell you there's a whole lot that has to be learned. So here's a teenager who saw that egg and thought, you know what? I'm going to sit on that egg. Gets it a little closer to where it should be, more on, like down in the abdomen, not the chest. There we go. That's closer. But not quite. Let's see now. And then here comes another one. Well, what do you do with that thing? I don't know. They will also do that with mangoes, tennis balls, whatever they have around that gives them that sense of there's something round and fun to sit on. So we like them to have a chance to practice like that. We had a few years ago a really terrible outbreak of pox. This is all from mosquitoes. We think it may have had to do with Kona winds that year, the mosquitoes not being blown away quite as much. It was a lot of rainfall, but not exceedingly more. So that chick was blinded in that eye, but survived to fledge. So they have a lot they have to contend with. Then they get bigger and bigger, and they do this pose that adults don't do, which they put their feet up in the air like this, lean back on their heels and put their feet up in the air. That's a way to air condition themselves because they're in a full down coat. And it's also a way to gather some vitamin D. So they're leaning back like this. The picture that I want to get, the photograph I want to get, that I've seen happen before but not gotten it, is when they put their feet so far back on their body, they leave a full footprint impression on their down. I want that shot before that impression goes away. That one, and when the butterfly lands on the beak. Okay, so I want to interrupt this life cycle conversation to tell you about some unique situations this year. We have, every year we have some thruples. And it's always 2 girls and 1 boy. It's not ever 2 boys and 1 girl, as far as I know. But it's very, very rare to find a boy sitting on 2 eggs. I've only seen it once before in all these years. You seen many boys sitting on 2 eggs? Really rare. Okay, so this guy right here, here's dad, right here, and he happens to be Kalua's dad, Kane. His mate did not return last year. And he waited and waited and waited and waited. So Kane's mom has probably died at sea. So now he's looking for a new mate. Well, this year he came in hot and he was hitting on everybody. And evidently he found himself 2 wives. So we don't know, they're both unbanded, so we'll never be able to tell who's who unless we get one of them banded. But here she is coming in to try to relieve him on the egg. Now he's a very experienced parent. He had, I think in 10 years, he successfully fledged 9 chicks with his mate. So he knows how to do this job. And she's brand new at it, probably. We don't know, she's unbanded. But here she comes in, and he's considering whether to let her sit on the egg. And only when he stands up at the end will you see that there are 2 eggs there. But she wants in, she wants to sit on, she is probably, well, she has laid one of those eggs, likely. I mean, she could be it could be a 3rd girlfriend, who knows? But she wants in, so she probably is the mother of one of those eggs, but he's not ready. And he wants to see the 2, and down he goes on it. He's not gonna have it. And he wouldn't let anybody on it for another couple of weeks. So then now now he's back on it, but he did let someone else take over for his time to go out to feed. and they kicked one out. Typically, when there are 2 eggs in the nest, they will kick one out or bury one. So they did kick one out after this. I'm sorry? Yes. I don't remember if that one was fertile or not, actually. I don't remember if that one was fertile or not. May or may not have been. Yes.
When you were identifying birds, you talked about them like, you have to go in and read their band or do anything else so you know which one's male. They look the same, right?
They look there. So the question is, do we have to read the bands to know who they are? Yeah, if they're banded, it really helps. It really helps us know who they are, what their history is, what's happening in this story. I couldn't tell you this story if we didn't have a band on him.
They let you just walk up and read your band.
Well, the bands, they have band on both legs. On one leg, they have a metal band that you can't read from unless you're looking really close. The other leg, they have a plastic band, and that band is, you can read from as far away as Thomas is, and with binoculars even further. So you can read them from a distance. You don't have to go up that close to them. So anyway, that is a video that no one else will show you, which is a male sitting on 2 eggs, which is always, us albatrossophiles enjoy these stories. We share them with each other. Guess what I saw today? And this one, we think we have, I think there are 4 nests this year from Tern Island or so. You have one from Guadalupe, right?
Well, yeah, one nest.
One nest from Guadalupe, yeah. So this Tern Island is basically a man-made island that's about halfway between here and Midway. It looks like a sunken battleship, flat and not too big, and it's just covered with nesting birds normally. But it's interesting because of the bird banding lab. We can find out histories of these birds, and this particular yellow band E766. I sent it to the bird banding lab, and they can tell me where the bird was banded. And what's really interesting to us was it an adult when it was banded, or was it a chick when it was banded? And what's good to know is that this bird was a chick when it was banded. And at least another one is like that too. And so that means they're leaving the place that they find as home and to come to Kauaʻi. That's what we want to see more of as things go underwater, because Tern is really flat. There's just nothing, right? So we really want them to move to someplace safe, and they have done it on their own. They've come to Kauaʻi, they found a mate or brought a mate, however they've done it. But we figure every chick that fledges from here has the potential for bringing friends back with them, right? Okay, and then this bird, not such a huge unusual story, but her name is Mokiana. She was actually one of the birds on the Cornell cam the last couple of years. She has the sweetest temperament you've ever seen in a bird. She's just the sweetest bird, and had the worst mate I've ever seen. He doesn't come back and relieve her on the egg. He doesn't feed the chick, or if he does, it's a month late. He's horrible. And so last year, finally, he didn't come back. And I said, oh, good. And then she waited. She did a little flirting, but she waited in the shadows for him, just waiting. And I said, honey, you got him. He's no good. You need a new one. So this year, she was hanging out in this particular place, patch of Wadelia, and she laid an egg right there, and so I knew she had a new mate, and then it was 2 eggs. So she's picked a girlfriend. She's gone to the change teams. She's with a girl now, and their egg is going to hatch. Should start on Friday. So, and they've been, and the female, her mate is a very experienced one. Both of them are very experienced moms, but Mokiana has never had a good mate before. So now she's going to have someone who's going to feed the chick on time, who relieved her on the egg on time, all of that. So she doesn't hardly know what she's in for. And then the female pairs, there's a certain property here on Kauaʻi that I appealed to the state and federal wildlife people to allow to accept adoptions. And they have to meet certain criteria. They have to be safe. They have to be a place where predator protection is going on, where we feel like it's a good idea for there to be adoptions happen there. Like in Princeville, you wouldn't want to give an adoption to one of those nests that's this far from the road, right? Where the garbage trucks come right around 5 feet away from the nest, not even 5 feet, right? Scary places for a chick to wander in the road. So low risk places, we finally got approval the day before adoptions, finally got approval. And thank you to DOFA, thank you to Fish and Wildlife Service for trusting in this spot. We came to this property, had 12 nests, and all 12 of them had fertile eggs. Nobody needed an adoption. Then we had 2 double egg nests. It included the throuple that you saw with the dad, and it included these 2 girls who have always had infertile eggs, or at least had eggs that didn't hatch. This year, of course, it's like the woman who adopts a baby and then she can have a baby, right? Then she's fertile. Well, that's what happened here. And so these 2 are just making out in the Wadelia. They have been together for years and years. And this year they've got a fertile egg. So on their own, their biological egg. And the other egg wasn't fertile and they picked the right one. That's not, they don't know the difference. Yeah, Cheryl. They have moved chicks in the past, but it's really iffy to do that. You should move an egg rather. I mean, either case, it's iffy. But you want to move an egg before letting a chick hatch. At PMRF, if you let the chick hatch, at least with the parent there, that's 2 more months that the parents are at risk of bird aircraft collision. And they can hatch an egg in an incubator, but it's not a really ideal. It's not the best way. It's better to have a parent on you. So when an egg gets moved, how long before they stop coming back? I can't answer that question. I'm not sure that there's anybody that monitors that. If you break up the nest, if you just kick it around and break up the nest, you'll see the parents grieve. But then they'll come back for a while. PMRF used to actually move those parents with the eggs up here, but I think they've stopped doing that because the bird's going to go right back. And the idea is to keep the airborne birds out of the airspace of the jets, right? So they will give up, but it takes them, I don't know, I would guess a week or so. What would you guess? Yeah, I mean, they still, even with an egg that's broken under them, that we've seen the parents stay on them for days. It's almost as if their GPS is the thing they've bonded to more than the egg itself. Yes, Cheryl used to have an albatross that landed on a bird and landed on the roof on the house behind her, and even spent the night, right? So she'd call me up and say, "You want a photo?" So I come over and take photos of the bird on a roof because they're not perching birds.
Is it time on and off the egg about the same amount of time? Depend on where they, how far they have to go to get food.
The time on and off the egg?
Turns sitting on the egg.
Oh,
Goes out to seed.
well, the female, so the question is the amount of time equal between the male and female? Was that the question?
Just on and off the egg.
They won't be off the egg at all. They won't be off the egg. I mean, sometimes they'll walk away for a minute or two, but usually and I've seen birds' eggs look like they've been abandoned and then somebody else gets back on it and still hatch. But typically they're going to stay on it like a Horton on the egg. They're going to stay on it and be true 100%. And then when the other one comes in, they do that replacement thing, but they don't expose it much. Experienced parents.
When the one who's been sitting on the egg gets off.
Then she goes to sea.
When she goes to sea to eat.
Yes, when the one that gets off the egg goes to sea to eat. Yeah, the adults don't feed each other. Right. Okay. So, yes.
So,
Speak up, please. Yes.
so it's not when you guys check if you check fertile or infertile. How does that work?
Yes. So the question is, how do we check the fertility of the egg? Yes, there's a dark cloth that the biologist puts over their head and then shines a flashlight in to see the embryo. Right. Okay, so this bird, you see the bird standing on that pile of logs and pine needles. So this bird was a teenager a few years ago on this colony when some bulls broke through the fence next door and trampled a bunch of chicks in here and killed 5 chicks. Horrible, horrible situation. Now, we don't know whether she was there when the moment it happened or she arrived after it, because we all stumbled upon this to find the fence broken through and these bulls in there. Then after that, she started standing on this. And now when she comes, she stands on this. It's like that's her safety zone. If I stand up here, I'm safe, right? Right? I mean, who knows if that's really what she's doing? Maybe she has an affinity for that spot anyway. But it sure seems like that's the place that she wants. And you'll see in this video, she even flirts from that spot. She'll nap on that spot. We don't know for sure if she spends the whole night up there, but by the poop pattern, she spends a lot of time. Now she's flirting with that one that just came in. And sometimes the other bird will come up and join her. But that's where she feels safe. That's her turf. Isn't that something? I mean, the places, when you think of the places that we feel safe, how we define them and what history happened to us to make us find our safe places, they're really no different, right? They're just looking for that. She's still going to come back to this spot. And I have seen birds relocate to another spot after a traumatic kill. I have seen them go somewhere else, to other properties. But in this case, she stuck around, and the parents of the chicks that got killed by those bulls have come back. Okay, so this bird, this is another first for us. And if you go to Kauaʻi Street, a place, and you'll see this sign. It took us a couple of years to get the permit to do this because there's no signs in Princeville. See this QR code. This will give you information about what goes on with albatross in general, and specifically in this circle, who these birds are. I was with some clients one day, and we saw a bird in this spot standing there looking very much like she might be ready to lay an egg. And she did. And then she didn't know what to do with it. She pushed it around like that teenager, like she didn't know what to do with it. So we thought, well, this is going to be a first-time nester who doesn't know what to do. But she stayed with it. And then here came her mate, and he stayed with it. So Kathy, who's not here tonight, who's been 20 years at keeping track of all the birds in Princeville, said, well, she pledged from here in that area in Princeville in 2019. So she's a young nester. She's like a 7-year-old nester, 6-year-old, 7-year-old nester. And the other bird, her mate, pledged in 2016. So he's a little, did I say that one right? 19 and 16. Anyway, so he's 3 years older. They're siblings. When she looked up on the record, found out same parents. So we'll see how many heads the baby comes out with. We don't know. And really, there's probably no reason that they would have to recognize a sibling, right? It doesn't do anything for survival. We're not even sure they recognize their parents when they come back after they've been at sea for 5 years. So I'm sure that the concept of siblinghood either has been not recognized or is overridden. Like, I don't know, you're cute. I know you're cute. And we both like the same place, right? It's like both being Catholic. You know, you just say, you know what, we have the same rituals and this is the place we like, right? And because they like the GPS so much, then you know, I found somebody who likes the place I like. Yeah, and wears the same clothes, chants the same chants, right? So we'll see what happens with this sibling pair. There has also been one mother and child pair in Princeville, but we don't know if it was a son or daughter, and it never hatched. So probably just as well. We don't know about that one, but this was a big surprise. So we all wanted to share this with each other. Guess what? We have siblings. Okay, now to the stage in which they get the funny hairdos. So once they're, you know, 4.5, 5 months old, getting closer to fledging, they get these really silly hairdos. And on Facebook, I post a whole bunch of them. We have this fake contest of you know, vote for which one is your favorite hairdo, and it's all tongue in cheek. But they really start looking totally ridiculous. That's an especially nice one. How are we doing for time? Where are we? We're great. Oh, okay. That's the Stanley Tucci look with the bald head and the hairy chest. Now this is one of our more popular ones over the years. This chick I was happy to include in the slides because this chick fledged from that spot and was on the last year of the camera. And Kahapeha was his name. And last year he had a mate and they had an egg that they abandoned right away and broke. This year, steady. They're in the shade, they're in a better spot, softer bed nesting material. So he and his mate, about 50 feet away from here, are on an egg that will be hatching sometime in the first week in February. And is fertile, like all the other 12 eggs on that spot. So they come right back to that place. They also will regurgitate up the stuff they can't digest. And it includes squid beaks, which is all these little black curly things, sharp curly things that squid fight with and consume with, kill with, and then a lot of plastic. So that black PVC pipe was a PVC piece of tubing was about the length of a toothbrush. So, and you can see all the bottle caps. That's what's going on in our oceans. So the chicks all puke up some degree of plastic. The hope is that it's not very much. And we're also having problems now with microplastics causing bowel obstructions. Microplastics of pieces of plastic that are about the size of a grain of sand. We've now lost some chicks as a result of the intestines being clogged with them. And there's nothing big to take out. It's not like you can scope them and then take out something big because it's too small and it congeals. And then what fools us is that then they have really great feathers because they're putting all their energy into their feathers, and we think that bird's looking good. And then they find out it's not, it's completely malnourished and neurogenically damaged. Then you find them lying on their side, kicking their feet in the air, and they can't be saved. So plastics are very toxic to us, not only in not big sizes, but little sizes. Then comes fledging time. And sometimes they just all of a sudden decide this is it. And off they go, first flight ever. And that bird actually banked in a little bit over some chicks in the field. I didn't show you that part, excuse me. Over the field, over some chicks that had been reluctant to fly. As if to say, you can do it. Come on, look at this is how you do it. Okay, so notice how quickly that happens. If you turn your back, you could miss it. So there are a lot of people that say, I want to see a fledge. I want to see an albatross fledge. So if you try long enough and you show up at the right place long enough, you'll probably see one. But it can happen behind your back. It can happen while you had just looked away for a second and then they're not there anymore because it's all silent, and all of a sudden they get the courage, the hunger, the desire to jump off a cliff, right? I mean, what would it take? What kind of courage would it take for us to do that? So I want you to see it in slow motion. It's a little more, you can see the decision in it a little more with slow motion. And they look like they drop down usually a little bit at first. You don't know if they're going to hit the trees, but they manage with enough strength to clear the trees. And then that begins their life at sea as a seabird.
Did you say they go out for 5 years?
Yes, typically they go out for about 5 years. The question is, how long do they go out? Sometimes 4. I think the youngest bird I've ever seen has been 3. Have you seen anything younger than 3? Anything younger than 3? So sometimes you see a 4-year-old and you go, wow, it's a 4-year-old, cool. But usually it's going to be more like 5, sometimes even 6, where you don't see them back all that time, then you see them back. And so the assumption is they've not touched solid ground for that whole time. Maybe they landed at midway and hung around, who knows? We don't have any way of tracking that. But the assumption is that they've gone far north, up around the Aleutians, and learned to find food. Clearly, they've learned to find food if they're still alive 5 years later. And now they're back. They've figured out how to make it back to the place they hatched. How the heck, huh? Okay, now let's talk about cats for a minute. So cats, pardon my, if I offend your sensibilities, but no-kill shelters are horrible for birds. No-kill shelters mean they won't take in any feral cats because they'll only take in the kind of take in the kind of cats that can be adopted. We won't take in the kind of cats that can't be adopted. So, and a lot of the shelters in the country are at 250% occupancy already anyway. So how could they possibly take in feral cats? So it's no-kill shelter sounds like a really good idea on the surface, but you'll see the kind of problem it causes. So, and neuter doesn't matter, they still have to hunt, right? So in fact, if you neuter them, part of the problem then becomes they won't get in a trap again. So then we've had super predators that have killed dozens and dozens and dozens of birds before we can get them. And this is a picture of with a trail cam of a cat carrying an adult shearwater. They probably, you asked the question, they probably don't predate on adult albatross, at least on Kauaʻi. We have not seen it to my knowledge, but a shearwater is way smaller. And they primarily hunt at night. You see that photo was taken at 12:42 a.m. And nationally, it's a problem too. You can see 2.5 billion birds killed by cats. In the US, in the estimated mortality is from Fish and Wildlife Service from causes. People talk about wind turbines being a problem, but look at the difference in the mortality rates. Here on Kauaʻi, we've passed a law that there's no feeding of feral cats on county property. And in Princeville, it's also forbidden to feed feral cats. In several of the homeowners associations as well, but also in Princeville 1 and Princeville 2, it's prohibited to feed feral cats. You can see with this cat and on the previous gold cat too that the ear is notched. That means it's been caught and neutered and is feral. It may be owned by a feral cat organization, but it's not owned by a human with an address. That's where it can come inside. This has made national news. That was an Outside magazine. That's that same video I showed you before. Socially conscious animal sheltering is what PETA recommends, which is that some cats do get taken in and euthanized because they're unadoptable. They're too wild. They will never go. They will never be socialized enough to be in a human home, and they're out here killing our birds. With native ducks and native gallinules here, we have 700 native Hawaiian ducks left in the world, and same with the gallinule. 700 left in the world, and probably 25,000 feral cats on Kauaʻi. So how many cats do you have to have in order for it to be enough? And PETA also says if you support trap, neuter, release, you support killing wildlife. It's basically what happens. It's what we see all the time. The woman who has this cat, excuse me, the woman who has this cat couldn't make it tonight, but she had this wonderful cat, Boopsie, that she had all her life traveled so much in her work, she was unable to adopt a cat. So finally, when she retired on Kauaʻi, she could adopt a cat. She got Boopsie, who was an abandoned pet, not a feral cat, but an abandoned pet. And Boopsie was the love of her life. Boopsie is a wonderful cat, but right away she found out Boopsie kills birds. Boopsie would bring home shama, white-rumped shamas, and that year she actually had an albatross nest in her hedge right across the street from Louise. And she would come out, Anne would come out with her beach chair and sit by the nest when Boopsie was out to make sure Boopsie didn't get the cat. Didn't get the bird. Well, you can't only do that for so long. So she decided to build a catio. This is not the one she has now. That was a permanent, temporary one put together, but now she has a wooden one. And the cat can come in and out from the house through the glass door over there, has a litter box and toys and steps and stuff to go on. So Boopsie goes in there. Also, I just want to tell you that the medical director of the urgent care clinic here says he has seen horrible wounds from feral cat scratches and bites. And it could be a kitten that came from the Humane Society that just gave you a tiny little puncture, and you had terrible fungal wounds, terrible, hard to clear up. So he really recommends do not handle feral cats. Okay, and back to the how can you help question. So refrain from feeding feral cats. I know we as a species feel like we nurture when we feed, and we feel such a desire to feed things that we see wandering around. But that cat is going, and you might think to yourself, well, if I feed that cat, then it won't predate on the wildlife, right? Because then it'll be fed. But everybody who's had a pet cat knows they bring home gifts. They're well fed and they bring home presents because they're predators. It's what's programmed into them. It's what they do. So please don't feed the feral cats. That's my request. You can donate to this organization that puts on these talks and a million other things. You saw the scholarships and the money that Thomas gives away. Thomas, in his time here, has been how many years now? 7 years. And in that time, I think the donations that he's inspired is something like 10 times what it was before that, before he started, right? Is that correct? 10 times. See, he won't say that to you, but I'm going to say that to you. And this board too. Patty and Louise are both on the board. Okay, so you can donate to them. Yay! There are other organizations you can pledge to. Save Our Shearwaters, who rescues the ones we bring in. Kauaʻi Wildlife Center takes some of the ones on for the hardest ones on the Big Island. American Bird Conservancy and PETA have been all with us in all of this. Really helpful. And then volunteering. You know where Krista is back over there. You know where Thomas is, Louise, Patty. They can talk with you about volunteering here in the refuge at Kilauea Point, as well as in Honolulu. You can be in some of the most beautiful places in the whole world where people spend a lot of money just to go see. You can go volunteer there. You can be sure you slow down when you drive through Princeville. Please drive slowly. We've had a number of birds killed by cars. And you can't fence them in completely. You can put some protective fencing, and you'll see that if you are in Princeville and you come around the areas where the nesting birds are, you'll see low fences that are partway around in the vicinity around them to keep the bird from wandering onto the street. Because when they're downy like that, they're the same color as the asphalt, right? But you can't completely fence it in because then the parent can't get in, right? So please drive slowly in Princeville. That's another thing you can do. And then just to remember again, with Mōlī matters, this is the only place in the world they nest among humans that gives us an opportunity to be their ambassadors. They can tell us about themselves if we sit and watch. If we get quiet enough to just sit and watch, they tell us a lot about themselves and their life cycles because we can't watch the other 90%. They're far out to sea. We don't know exactly how it goes out there, but we know how it goes here on Kauai. And so we can spread the word of who they are. I happen to think they're the top of nature's creations, way above us. We're the newest species, right? We've got so much to learn. They can teach us. We just got to listen, right? Yes, sure.
In addition to driving slowly,
Because the bird, okay, so Cheryl is saying, okay. So Cheryl is saying, be careful when you drive on the streets in Princeville, especially near the nests, because a bird might be flying into the street and might collide with the vehicle. Yeah, Tina. You've seen what, sorry?
Somebody flying on their right into where they were about to land. Same
Oh,
thing.
okay.
idea.
Right, so watching for birds at flight, especially in the areas where the chicks are, because the parents are coming in to feed, and also teenagers are coming in because they're attracted to being around the chicks and to flirt. Yeah, they have no fear, right? They have no sense that from you, in a minute, you're gonna be right over there. Yeah, that's right. Do we have any questions online? Nope. Everybody's happy and satisfied online? Well, thanks to everybody who's there. I know we got folks from a long way away. Thank you for staying up on the East Coast. Thank you, everybody, for being here. And one more question, yeah.
Wind farms, that's
Just
on
one second.
Maui. I don't know if there's wind farms here too, but I saw the wind farms in Maui, and I just wondered if that's having an effect. And I wondered do they sleep? Do they sleep while they fly?
They can sleep while we're in flight. I don't know about collisions. I know that there was a study about 10 years ago to try to determine exactly the paths by which the albatross left so that there wouldn't be wind farms in their way. I've not heard of any collisions. Anybody know anything about wind farms? Okay. Pardon? We've seen them collide with trees. Yeah, that's true. We have. Yeah, and then when it's super windy too, a couple of years ago, we had birds hanging from trees by their feet because they got slammed in because the wind was so. Remember the one that was just in? There was one in Princeville. There wasn't in Ainakai, and because the Ainakai one wasn't discovered for a couple of days, that one didn't live. But this one in Princeville was discovered right away and got sawed down from I think it was an Eureka. So they certainly could collide with windmills, but I'm much more concerned about cats. And you had a second question?
Or just, yeah, that sleep, would you say?
Oh.
You think they might sleep, but you don't know if they sleep?
We do know they sleep in flight. Yeah. Yeah, they can toggle back and forth between sides of their brain. So if you see a bird that's sitting on the ground nesting, it will often have one eye open. She will be looking around with one eye and the other one will be closed. So they toggle back and forth. One hemisphere asleep and one hemisphere awake. A lot of animals can do that. I think I do that. They're built for fasting. How can they go so long without food? Dana said. So they are built for fasting. Because they spend so little calories flying. A hummingbird can literally die of starvation in one day because they have to eat because they flap 50 times a second or something. So who knows? It's a lot of flapping that they do. Albatross can go days and days without a single wing beat. Yeah. Yes. The food. They land on the surface of the ocean and bob for it typically. They can go a little bit lower. I mean, they can dive a little bit, but generally big winged birds don't dive. So the frigate birds, you don't see them doing that. Albatross, you don't see them doing that so much. Boobies can do it. They've got short enough wings that they can go way down and tuck their wings and swim like penguins, right? So they need something on the surface as part of the reason that they have to forage such a huge area because they're looking for food on the surface, mostly squid or flying fish. Yeah, so yeah, but they don't skim across the water and pick up food, but in general, I have seen a video of one doing that, but I don't think that's in general what they do. Any other question? No? Thank you so much for your attention. Thank you for being here.